I gotcha.
Oh, yeah. Damn. Damn, boy. Damn, boy! Okay, show of hands, how many of you guys actually got into the multiplayer component of The Last of Us? I gotta be honest, it's kind of just a thing I picked up after finishing the game and then dropped off after a couple of hours. But to my surprise, it actually has a pretty decently sized cult following behind it. Hell, I think up until, what was it, like a year or so ago, there were still people playing on the PS3 version of the multiplayer, and that thing came out like 25 years ago. Welcome to People Are Still Playing, this being the pilot episode of a little series I'm planning to start where I just take a look back on the multiplayer modes and niche or older titles. I attempt to tell you what it's all about, give it a shot myself, and tell you if it's worth looking into today. So without further ado, let's get into The Last of Us Factions multiplayer. There's like a little micro game inside of The Last of Us Factions multiplayer. When you first boot it up, you're given the option to choose a team, either the Fireflies or the Raiders, Bandits, I don't remember what they're called. And once you do that, you're tasked with building up a camp of survivors. In playing, you're given like a task over multiple weeks to gain more survivors and keep them happy and healthy. This being done by collecting food and supplies in the game, as well as just completing challenges and playing games. Depending on how you play or what you do in that game, you'll either gain or lose survivors. If you say wanted to switch a team from like the Fireflies to the Raiders, a way you could do that is just by getting into a game and doing absolutely nothing. Basically reverse boosting yourself, restarting the calendar on your game, and sending you back to choose a team again after you've killed everybody in your camp. The more you play, the more you help them survive. I wish they would have given a better option and just change your team, but oh well. The game consists of 3 game modes: Supply Raid, Survivors, and Interrogation. Supply Raid basically being your most common to a team deathmatch type of game mode. Instead of getting to a certain score, you have a certain amount of lives, and after your team's killed a certain amount, the game will either end or you'll win or lose depending on how many lives you have left. I thought that this is a pretty neat take on it. Kind of fits the theme of The Last of Us. Staying alive. Surviving. Survivors is basically like search and destroy without the bomb, if you've ever played one of those type of game modes. Each team is given 1 life, no respawns, and you have to win a certain amount of rounds to win. Rounds are won by killing the other team or being left alive after the time runs out with the most health or people alive. I really enjoy these types of game modes, and I think it works really well in The Last of Us.
Step it up, bound to be more coming.
The last one being Interrogation. This one is a little bit of a mixed bag. See, every time you kill somebody in The Last of Us, they get downed, and then you have the option to either kill them, execute them, bleed out, or give them the option to be respawned by a teammate. Pretty straightforward. In the Interrogation game mode, executing somebody is basically like interrogating them. Each team has to interrogate the other team a certain amount of times to obtain a key for the lockbox in the other team's base. So after achieving a certain amount of interrogations, you have to basically raid their base with your team and get that box open. I played a couple of rounds of interrogation for this video, none of them which were successfully unlocking the lockbox. After a certain amount of interrogations, it basically just kind of turned into a team deathmatch. So I don't know. I don't know if this is just kind of a flawed game mode or if everybody just kind of plays this to just kill each other, but that was my experience with it anyways. I believe every game mode plays out on the same maps. There's a really good variety of maps here, all kind of based on the campaign but reworked for multiplayer. You also can create a class, a lot of stuff being locked off on your earlier levels. I believe there's even like paid DLC for certain guns and unlocks, but I'm not 100% on what specifically that entails. So I started off on Supply Raid here. Completely forgot I made this character with this sick cowboy hat. I think I put the bandana on either because I wanted to fit the theme of what's going on in the world, or I just wanted to have a cool cowboy bandana. Don't really remember. I forgot that this game actually runs at a buttery smooth 60 FPS unlike the PS3 version and unlike the most recent Last of Us Part 2, so that was a nice surprise. The game features all of the guns from the campaign mode, all kind of fitting their own theme and, like I said, being kind of locked off depending on your level. You'll immediately realize that the gameplay on this is definitely The Last of Us gameplay. Like I said in my Last of Us Part 2 video, if you don't like the combat and you don't like the basic gameplay of The Last of Us, you're not going to enjoy the multiplayer. It's pretty straightforward. However, my issue with the multiplayer, the first glaring issue for me, was definitely just the balancing of the weapons. I didn't have fun with it. Because you see in the campaign, everything's brutal and straightforward. You shoot a dude in the head with a rifle, he's dead. You shoot a dude in the right spot with a crossbow, he's dead. In The Last of Us multiplayer, yeah, you can hit a dude in the head with a crossbow, it'll be a one shot, but every time you shoot somebody, they just get down. They don't immediately die. You don't get the satisfaction of that. And most guns don't seem to weigh too much on their damage. It's more like you got a light pistol, that's a 5-shot kill every time. You got a heavy pistol, that's a 3-shot kill. Or if you have a short-range shotgun, it's a 2-shot kill. You know, unlike every other shooter game where the shotgun is usually a 1-shot kill right directly in front of you. Like, you know, when you're barrel stuffing a guy, like what you would do with a shotgun? Every rifle is a 5-shot kill. I don't know, I just didn't enjoy this element of the multiplayer. But on The Last of Us, it's just a little more, I would say, strategy-based. This isn't a game that you can jump on and possibly get immediate satisfaction out of. It takes a little bit of getting used to. You're not just gonna jump in and immediately be a pro. If you thought you were any good with the gunplay in the Last of Us campaign, the multiplayer will humble your ass up very quick. And that's definitely not inherently a bad thing. I'm not saying that that's a point against it. I would just have liked for something, say, shotgun shotguns to be a little more immediately brutal than they were. For me, there's nothing worse than somebody feeling like a bullet sponge in a competitive multiplayer game. One big thing I didn't enjoy about team shooters like Overwatch, just a personal preference. Also, in your scoreboard, your executions are separate from your kills, so you can basically execute an enemy that was down by another teammate, vice versa, so you'll kind of get different points based on that. Other than the shooting, the gameplay kind of fits the theme of The Last of Us pretty well. You can use the listen mode very sparingly. You can open toolboxes to craft items while you're playing. And some of the violent executions really feel brutal. When you get hit with an upgraded melee weapon, you're immediately downed as opposed to somebody who's trying to punch you. There's still shivs. I mean, they basically kept as many gameplay elements as they could from the campaign intact in the multiplayer, which I really like. Usually you would think that a lot of this stuff gets nerfed down, which in fairness it did for the sake of the gameplay, but I think it was necessary. Next, I started off the gameplay of the survivors mode in this high school level, which was pretty nice, and I gotta say this is definitely one of my favorites, if not my favorite game mode, because it fits the theme of The Last of Us perfectly. You kill a guy, you kill him till he's dead. You execute him and there's no coming back from it. That's it. This was one of my favorite game modes in Call of Duty. I know it's not for everybody, but for me, I like it. I still sucked at it. All of the maps in The Last of Us multiplayer are based on the campaign levels, but they're all reworked for multiplayer. This isn't a case of they just kind of took the campaign levels and slapped it in there for multiplayer. They all are very unique and they play really well suited to the gameplay. One recommendation I have for playing Factions multiplayer, don't play with a mic.
Lift the game, motherfucker. Lift the game, you knew. You son of a bitch. You used to crossbow. Crossbow, really? You fucker. You used to crossbow. You knew, you motherfucker. You used to glitch. God damn, like, can you stay alive for 5 minutes?
Come on, get your banana monkey.
Take it.
Come on, get your banana monkey.
Take it. Take it. Take it. Dickhead, you dickhead!
I have yet to hear a positive interaction of the mic chat since I've been playing this for the past few years off and on. Also, I feel like this is a game that would highly benefit from you playing with friends. Not to use the whole, oh, that's better with friends argument, but it's definitely a game that caters to voice chat and communication and tactics, and that's something that you pretty much, I would say, cannot do in the public multiplayer.
Your mama sucked my dick, bitch.
Shut the fuck up.
If you're a new player, good luck, because everybody playing this thing, or at least almost everybody playing this in my experience, were experienced players, like level 999, level 300, level 400, and I'm sitting here level 1, just vibing. It's definitely a hard game to get into, because it's one of those things where it requires a little bit of time to learn, and it's hard to do that when you're the newest player in the lobby, every time. But with a smaller niche community, that's just kind of what you get. I tried the interrogation game mode a couple of times for the sake of the video, and it's pretty decent. I like the idea that they really reached to try to do something different with the multiplayer than just have your basic team deathmatch free-for-all type of game modes. But personally, it just wasn't for me. The games last so long. To start off, you have to interrogate them, which means you have to knock them down and then execute them. And you have to do this a lot. After finally doing that, you unlock the key to open the other person's lockbox on the opposite side of the map. This is very hard to do because the maps are pretty well guarded by the opposite team, meaning you would have to tactically rush in, which again is hard to do when you're playing by yourself. It's especially hard when you're a new player. These games last up to 15 minutes, and you could go and play this entire game never getting into the other team's lockbox just because it's so hard to get into. The only way you may win the game is by having the most amount of interrogations over the other team, and that's after basically just running around killing until the time limit dwindles down, and at that point you might as well just play team deathmatch. Personally, I just didn't enjoy the game mode. I know there's probably a lot of people that enjoy the interrogation game mode. It's interesting and it's worth looking into. Wasn't for me though. Although it took place on the ski lodge map that kind of vaguely resembled the original map in the campaign, and I thought that this was also pretty neat. The levels kind of vary in their design and verticality, like the school level has a lot more than the ski lodge level. Therefore, I'm partial to the school level. The maps are very tight and offer really tense competitive gameplay, and I think they work very well for what they are. I can't speak a whole lot on the ranking and upgrade system. I think after about an hour of gameplay, I was at level 2. This is honestly kind of where I gotta give another weak point to the Factions multiplayer. It doesn't feel very rewarding to play. And above everything else, that's kind of where my biggest issue lies. For me, it just wasn't satisfying to finish a game. The game ends with you win, black screen, back to the main menu to start another one. Very slowly you may get a cosmetic item that trickles down. You don't unlock weapons very fast, and the weapons that I did have unlocked just weren't really fun to use personally. I think I had the most fun with the crossbow because it felt the most faithful to the original game. It was just so satisfying to nail a guy. It was just so satisfying to nail an unsuspecting guy or somebody that was hammering you down from halfway across the map. What wasn't fun was trying to play aggressively with a light pistol that took 5 shots to down somebody and just getting wasted as soon as you run up on them. As you're playing, you obtain and you pick up parts points from these toolboxes, which allow you to buy items during the gameplay, like a weapon upgrade or armor or more ammo, which works okay enough, but I kind of feel like that may mess with the balance a little bit. You just respawn and you run up on a guy that just bought armor, you're kind of in a worse spot. Or say you pull out a 5-shot pistol at the wrong time where a guy's sitting there with a 2 or 3 shot rifle, he's probably going to take you out first. You could say it's a balancing issue. You could say that maybe I just need to get good and learn the tactics of the game, which would be a fair point. You know, I haven't put like 20 plus hours into the multiplayer. I can't give you a deep dive on the multiplayer mechanics, but what I can say as a new player, I was pretty turned off by that. If you're a hardcore fan of The Last of Us, I could see how you could definitely get into the multiplayer today, albeit very hard with everybody else being a higher rank than you. But honestly, it's just something I couldn't see myself loving long term. Maybe if they brought one with more polish and balancing and felt a little more fun to play in the second game, I would be all for it, because I would really like to see multiplayer in The Last of Us Part 2. There's kind of some rumored rumblings of it, and I really hope it does happen, because I really enjoyed the gameplay in the second part. All the guns felt tough. Everything felt so satisfying to use. Hopefully they keep the gore intact, because that was pretty lit. But to everybody holding it down on The Last of Us Factions multiplayer, I salute you, as well as to any newcomers trying to get into it, because I know it ain't easy. But man, if you can get into it and you can have a good time in the game, there's a good time to be had there. Naughty Dog obviously put some effort into the multiplayer. This wasn't just a tacked on thing, but for me, it's just hard to get into today. But if you already have the game, or you can pick it up dirt cheap, which I'm pretty sure you can do now, definitely give it a shot. Give it a shot. But I think that's all I got, guys. Hopefully you have some input on The Last of Us Factions multiplayer. What do you think about it? Have you tried it out? Are you one of these people that are keeping this game alive? Let me know in the comments. And if you think this is a good idea for a potential series, let me know and stick around, because I'll definitely bring more. I love going into old multiplayer games like this. But yeah, until next time, check out the other videos in the Patreon if you do so wish to support it. Shout out to Exit as always, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. It's been C. Later.
Yeah.
My dick, suck my dick, suck my dick, son of a